You are now watching Footy Prime, the podcast, hosted by Danny Dicchio, Craig Forrest, and James Sharman.
Well, he was missed terribly last week. So terribly, in fact, that we had a record podcast with the most listeners we've had so far. But Craig Forrest is back from his mid-season break, which happens now and again, right? You know, it's the first time, actually.
Well, that's right.
These mid-season breaks are happening in the Premier League.
Yeah.
You yourself enjoyed one.
I had to come back and make sure Terry didn't take my spot. Otherwise, I would have stayed in Mexico. I mean, who doesn't want to stay in Mexico?
It must have been an awful time. 11 days must have been terrible.
11 guys.
11 days? 11 days?
Yeah.
That's how many guys went with you. Not 11 guys in 11 days. You just sounded a little bit...
On 11 golf courses.
Yeah,
On 11 golf courses.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Hey, that's a
there's
film in the
nothing
making. We should get it.
Craig wants to tell us something.
Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah. Who doesn't want to talk about the stories?
How many rounds of golf did you get in?
8.
8
Yeah.
in 11 days. I thought you'd be doing more than that. A couple a day.
Well, the Super Bowl had a day off. Another day, a couple of the other guys wanted to take a day off. So, yeah, it was good.
Did you miss us?
Yes, it was
Yeah,
amazing.
sure.
Yeah, I raced home through Houston.
Last night.
Lost my golf clubs.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lost them what? In the airport?
Well, I don't
Like in
know
the
where. We
airline?
don't know where they are.
It could be anywhere.
They could be. They're probably in Houston.
Air Canada? Or
No, it wouldn't be Air Canada's fault.
They're renowned for losing stuff.
Yes.
Unless they want to sponsor us, in which case they're never renowned for losing stuff. Danny Dicchio's here with his beard. Deitch?
Good morning, fellas.
Yeah, has it been groomed since last week? Do you groom it? You groom
yeah,
it, right?
steadily.
Yeah, you groom it, right? A little trim here,
Well,
and
no,
here and
I
there.
just, whenever there's like long spider legs popping out here and there, I trim it.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you use oil?
I use beard balm, actually.
Beard
It's a new
balm.
way forwards, yeah.
Yeah, and that does what? Just softens it nicely?
No, it just sticks it down rather than
Comes like
Oh,
like
that's
right-
why.
just a little bit. And
Yeah?
you got to groom it. You got to train it.
You do, eh?
Yeah.
It looks good.
Because you got no hair, you got to. You like the
Yeah.
fact that you can groom something.
As my old friend Ray Wilkins used to say, he used to call it upside down head. If you're bald and with a beard, you are an upside down head.
It's like it's like your head's making up for what's on top with wonderful growth beneath.
I'm waiting for you to show up when it's going to be just all black.
Yeah.
Just for men.
What's a diet?
Yeah,
No, I couldn't do
Just for men. 5 minutes.
that. That'd freak my kids out. It's already freaking them out enough.
Look like was it Bluto? Isn't it Bluto? Pluto. Who's
Pluto.
Who's
The Disney character,
Popeye? No,
Pluto?
Popye's arch nemesis. Popeye's arch nemesis.
Pluto.
Is it
Pluto. Where are you from? How do you not know? Pluto?
Pluto wasn't he
No.
Popeye's
That was
arch
Brutus.
nemesis? Brutus. Was it Brutus?
It was Pluto.
He was Pluto, right? Yeah. Craig. He was Pluto.
Was it Pluto?
No, Bluto.
Pluto.
Pluto was the dog from, like
Disney
Mickey
character,
Mouse
yeah.
and all that.
Yeah, the yellow dog with the
Pluto
black
was,
black
All right.
ears.
the
My apologies.
big angry white man with a beard. That's how I saw that.
Dan Wong's here on keyboards
I'm on the keyboard.
and on the mic as well.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
You guys
Well,
need
welcome to Footy Prime, everyone. Oscars last night. Didn't give a shit. Anyone here?
No.
Sorry, what was on?
The Oscars.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it.
You
actually.
did, yeah?
Sparingly.
Hey, good for Parasite and the South Korean director.
Have you watched it?
No.
Sorry, have you read it?
Yeah, no, but I will.
Me too, yeah.
Apparently, it's really good.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Best picture.
Yeah, well, that's not always
Interesting to note as well, Martin Scorsese, 0 Oscars again. I think that's
He was shut out, was he?
2 big movies he's kind of put out.
What,
whether
so
it be
the-
on Netflix or anything, but
The Irishman got
0.
nothing?
0.
Really? Too friggin' long, that's why.
Yeah.
I watched
Yeah.
it. It was all right. It wasn't great. It
It's
wasn't
funny,
great.
the host, who was the host last night, the black guy, was it, not Chris Rock, one of them was, and he said, I'd just like to say, Martin, how good the series, The Irishman, was. I'm currently, I'm nearly finished the first series, can't wait for the second series to come out. But he's got a lot of stick over that. When I look at Scorsese at them events, I just see like an old man frowning and going, how much longer do I have to fucking sit here and
Yeah, I know.
watch all these people?
But then you see this broken down, shriveled old director, and then you see the Rolex commercials, and he's like, they've got the filter on. He looks young, he looks dynamic, and excited to be, making lots of money through Rolex. It's like, which is a real Marty, the Rolex Marty or the Oscars Marty?
That's what we need, Shams, to liven you two up, because I look dabbing her at the moment.
We need a filter?
Yeah, you're
Need a
right.
filter
we need a filter,
or a
right?
Rolex advertisement.
Yeah, you know, if I had a Rolex on my wrist, I'd be pretty happy right now. Yeah, I would be. But it got me thinking, you know, the Oscars, and let's make a theme of this week's podcast, fame and fans, all right? And, you know, to start with, though, acting, all right? The best actor in football. Now, I don't know if you saw this recently, but I think last week it came out, Liam Gallagher of Oasis fame, his latest video with Eric Cantona. It's fantastic. It's called Once. The song's great, by the way. It's the best post-Oasis Liam Gallagher song, for sure. It's brilliant. And King Cantona is in there as a king living in this mansion. And it's so funny because Liam Gallagher's a massive Man City fan, right?
Right.
Very public Man City fan. And
Yeah.
he's talking about Eric Cantona, King Eric, you know, in this song, in this video. Have you seen this?
No,
I should have probably sent it to
read
you.
Yeah.
I'm a good host. But Cantona obviously was a great character actor in football. Anyone that stands out to you guys who really transcended the sport that way?
Not more than Cantona off the top of my head. Gifted athlete, you know, tremendous football player. I remember flagging him off when we played him at Portman Road at Ipswich. Read his free kick over the wall perfectly. Just sort of
Did you
flagged
get
him.
that Beano out like those? Yeah, read that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well,
Are we talking about acting like footballers that go into acting, or acting on the
no,
field? having
whatever
this
you want.
persona?
We know. I mean, Cantona
Vinnie
being-
Jones.
Vinnie Jones,
went
obviously,
into
yeah,
acting.
acted. Yeah.
You could even go earlier than that. What was the football movie? Escape to
Oh,
Victory.
yes.
Oh,
The
yeah,
legends
yeah.
in that.
Yeah. All the
Pele
Ipswich.
was in it.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone in goal.
Yeah.
Bobby Moore was in it, I think,
Yeah, he
as
was.
well.
Yeah.
Well, there's
Ozzy
John
Ardiles.
Wark,
That was a great movie, by the way.
was a great
Kevin
movie.
O'Callaghan.
I
from
loved that
Ipswich.
movie.
Yeah.
We were talking about doing like our movie reviews of the week, football movie reviews.
Yeah.
We should do that.
There's not enough of them.
There aren't that many, are there?
No, not
I'm-
really.
I'm not doing Bend It Like Beckham. Doesn't count.
Could do sports movies of the week
We could do.
or the month, whatever you want to call.
We could.
Not a bad movie though. Ben and Like Beckham.
It's okay. It's not really a football movie though per se, is it? I don't think.
No.
No.
I think when you're going to the avenue of talking about characters and the personas of certain players, I think you look at present day where you've got these icons like Ronaldo's, Messi to a degree. I don't think his image is as big as Ronaldo because of just not the way he
Didn't
looks.
Ronaldo just hit 200 million,
200 million
just on Instagram?
Followers. So you can tell what kind of an icon. Okay, he's a good-looking boy. He's got the hair. He's got the tan and everything. I'm just trying to think, like
brand
back in
first.
the 80s as well. It was more. They were more like rock stars back in those days, weren't they, Craig?
Well, George Best was the first
Yeah.
rock and roll footballer.
Like your Stanley Bowles, George Best, the long hair, the big flares.
Whereas now they're boy bands.
Champagne Charlie.
They were rock
I think
stars in those days.
They
Now
went
they're
to
boy
bands
bands.
in the 90s and 2000s, but now I'm just trying to think, what would you class them as now? Like you've got your
YouTube
Neymars,
stars.
your yeah, I suppose. Guys, my boy is a baseball player, but if I ask him who your favourite soccer player is, and he doesn't watch much soccer, he watches basketball and baseball here, I don't think he could tell me someone that he would like. Like
Really?
maybe he would choose Neymar or someone like
Yeah,
that.
guys that are obviously great footballers, but their brand goes beyond the game. Ronaldo, Neymar, guys that are trying to do that as well at the moment. Jesse Lingard.
I honestly, hey, some
guys are trying.
some of the modern athletes too, in all sports, they're more worried about their image than they are winning sometimes.
There's fame in this fame, right? And it's gone to a brand new level now. It's
Yeah.
not about what you're doing with the ball at your feet. It's
No.
like I said, how many Instagram followers you have.
Well,
Yeah.
it's in the contracts as well. I was reading yesterday about Marcus Rashford, who was on something like £150 a week 5 years ago to the day.
And now it's what?
He now, last year, made something in excess of 2.5 million just purely from his image rights.
Right.
So all these contracts that the agents are writing in, these certain clauses and stuff now, image rights is a massive part of that. A massive part of that. I remember when David Beckham came to the MLS, the image rights probably weighed up in comparison to his actual wage as well. Then adding the expansion team that he got with Inter Miami as well. So these contracts are very thoroughly thought of nowadays compared to when me and Craig were playing, where it's you're getting this per week, you'll get this for a certain amount of appearances, this for clean sheets or goals scored, win bonus, promotion bonus. That's it.
Yeah.
Clubs now are looking at footballers when they sign them as not just footballers, right? In many ways, what can they do for us as an image standpoint? How many followers? A lot of we've seen it the last number of years how a lot of Asian players are being signed up, and they could be good footballers, but it's also because they can unlock that Asian market.
Yeah.
It's to get that first world-class Chinese footballer would be enormous, right?
I
Whoever gets it.
remember Portsmouth signed a Japanese goalkeeper, the international.
Yeah.
I remember his name. He was okay for Japan, but when he came to
Struggled,
England,
yeah.
he struggled. He struggled, and they were hoping that he would be okay because of the amount of people that would support him. Right? They would sell millions of jerseys.
Yeah.
Park was a very important player for Manchester United. Park,
Ji-sung Park.
Ji-sung
Yeah,
Park,
yeah.
when he came over to a massive club, obviously like Manchester United, but actually provided the talent that was needed to show that he could play at that level. But I think that pushed on the branding of Manchester United as a whole as well. They were a massive club worldwide, but to go into the Asian market, as you're saying, Craig, and have a stellar starting player within your lineup week in, week out.
It's priceless, right?
I can't even say what that brought to Manchester United football.
Remember
club.
Nakata back in the
Nakata as well,
early
yeah,
2000s,
from
a decent player, right? And had that brand over there. But, it was picked up by some big clubs. Roma had him for a while, of course,
Yeah.
and
Well,
never
look at
really
Sun
reached
now
his
as well.
heights in the football
Spurs,
field.
Spurs have got a massive Asian following as well. They go over there at least twice a year.
Heung-min Son,
Yeah.
right?
And he's
Unbelievable.
proper.
And he's a fantastic.
But what's he
Proper
worth? Okay, what
footballer.
is the football? Okay, Heung-min Son, right? What is he worth as a footballer? Forget the everything else, right? He's at this point in this current climate, he's got to be what, a 60, 70 million
Easily.
pound player.
Easily.
Throw in another 20 or 30 for the fact that he will unlock that Korean market.
Yeah.
He could be a 100 million pound player
Yeah.
potentially, right?
Sponsorships on the shirts as
That's
well.
what, when West Ham signed me, they were thought about that, eh? They thought about
Canadian market?
Oh yeah, correct. Of course. they'll sell frickin' 3 jerseys.
We could get that maple syrup on the jersey there.
What does he bring to the table? Nothing.
So you were paid purely for your footballing. There was nothing else. Did it? In fact, it counted against you. In fact,
Oh yeah, totally it counted against me.
despite being Canadian,
Yeah.
he's a half decent keeper. We'll keep him around for a bit.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, nothing else.
But I mean, you obviously played in the Premier League for some big clubs, right? What was that moment you realised, man, I've got a little bit of fame's a big word, right? But I mean, the bottom line is this fame regionally. Ipswich, within Ipswich, you are well known. Sunderland, wherever. London's a bit different, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. But was there a moment when you realised, wow, I'm the man about town here. People know who I am.
Oh, it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I first noticed it when I first arrived at Ipswich. I mean, Ipswich back in those days too they were
Big club.
They were the dog's bollocks. They really were. I mean, coming off the FA Cup and UEFA Cup, and nobody was developing players more.
Bobby Robson, for crying out loud.
Bobby Robson and all that, bringing them over there. And I think that's a big help for me as being a foreigner when Tyson and Muren came from Holland and nobody thought they could play at that level. They're going to get kicked off the ball. They're not going to be able to play like this tippy-tappy football. Proved everybody wrong. So even though it was kind of a rural part of England, maybe not open to foreigners as much. They were way ahead of the curve as far as that. So they were willing to take chances on foreign players. So that was big. But so first noticed it just playing in friendlies and preseason when I first arrived there, and just the difference. And then, people start to recognize you and, follow you and your developments and things like that. But I mean, it's also a very small area of England too, very, very small, very much a village really.
But walking around town, I mean, you do stand out. You're 6'5".
Oh yeah. If in hindsight, I would have probably, I would have lived at least a half an hour away from the town.
You
which
were
I
in town?
Didn't. I was in town the whole time.
At the Dewdrop Inn.
At the Dewdrop Inn, my landladies, yeah, and so it was different, but it was a lot of pressure. I mean, it's different here, and I noticed it when I came back after spending 18 years over there. Toronto Maple Leafs ended the season, terrible season, didn't make the playoffs, and a bunch of the players were out having an end of season due in Yorkville, Toronto, somewhere. And I couldn't believe it that they were actually out in Toronto, didn't make the playoffs, absolute crap, and that nobody was actually.
Because you couldn't do that back in England.
Would never,
Oh,
ever,
they
ever.
they would front up with you like
Players wouldn't do it in the first place, would they, Craig?
Not
As
a
players, you
chance. You would go to Spain.
Yeah.
Get away. No way are you going in there, because if you don't perform and you don't do your job in the eyes of the fans, you are going to get it. It's a different. They're not asking for your autograph.
Yeah, right.
Talking about small town, though, and I would class Sunderland as a small town as well. Maybe the Meckhams there wouldn't class it as a small town, but small town in comparison to London. Similar to Ipswich, probably maybe a little bit bigger than Ipswich, but everyone knows who you are and where you live. And I lived just outside of town. I lived in Durham. But we would walk around Sainsbury's and people would follow you around, kind of looking what you're putting in your shopping trolley.
But you get that here in
They would
Loblaws.
yeah, it's true. But they would act kind of
And
amazed by seeing. It wasn't that you were a famous like rock star or pop star. They were just they lived and breathed supporting their local football club. I remember going out with my missus one night for a dinner, and we're sitting at a table, just a one-on-one candlelit dinner in a restaurant, and there's a bar to the side of the restaurant.
Didn't take you as a romantic.
Yeah, well,
he's apologising. Here's an apology dinner.
I think it was a curry house actually. But, so we're halfway through this meal, and then a fella comes over to the table, and he kind of knocks me on the shoulder. He goes, "Danny, can I talk to you?" So I've gone, this is a little bit uncomfortable. Yeah, he's gone, I want to know what's going on. So I said, "What do you mean?" He said, I want to know what's going on with the team, and I want to know what's going on with you. So I've tried to be as diplomatic as possible. I said, "Look, I'm out with my wife having a meal. If you want to talk, let's go to the training ground, or can you wait till after the meal's finished?" He said, No. I've got a right to know what's going on.
I pay your wages.
I pay your wages.
Oh, God, one of those, eh? Yeah.
So I want to know what's going on. He's obviously had a couple of bevies, a couple of drinks, and he's a little bit forward thinking and thinking he can come over. And so I said to him, I said, "Look, I don't want to cause no trouble in here. I'm just out with my wife. I'm having a meal now. I understand your frustrations at the moment. As I said to you, there's a time and place. I'm out with my wife. Would I do that to you when you were sitting with your girlfriend or wife or whoever it is that you're out for a meal with? No." So he said, "I don't care. I want to know why you haven't scored in the last 2 games." So I said to him, I said, "Okay, fella." I said,
20.
"What do you do?" Could have been 30. I said, "What do you do for a living?" So he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "What do you do for a living?" He says, I'm a bin man. I pick up garbage. I pick up your rubbish." I said, "Okay, so I pay your fucking wages with my taxes." So if we want to get into that argument,
Hang on.
let's go full ahead. So then my missus is kicking me under the table and said, let's not get into this. It's starting to become a little bit
Can
crowded,
ruin your
isn't it?
evening pretty quickly.
It totally ruined my evening.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get up and go outside with the fella then.
Yeah.
So
But they feel they
very
own you, right?
difficult.
They feel they own you, and you're part because whatever they pay, because they are so immersed in that club, and every conversation that week is about that team and the struggles, and they pay your bills, they pay your wages. They think they own you, and that's wrong, but that's just the mentality of a lot of football fans, sports fans.
Yeah. I remember I was telling my dad we were going through a time and the club's struggling, and I'm like, "Dad, I can't even go out. Like, it's just a nightmare." And he's like, "Well, it's your career's short and you got to suck it up, and they do actually pay your wages, and, blah, blah, blah." So he comes over and we're down at Sainsbury's, like Loblaws or whatever, and walking around, and a couple aisles over.
Is it West Ham or Ipswich?
Ipswich.
Right.
A couple aisles over, these guys are just giving me all this, "For your shite." I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And he's like, what was that? And I go, "Well, I don't know, some guys over there." And he's like, what? He goes, "How do you," and he usually wanted to front him. Like, he was like, "What the hell? Like, how do you take this?" And I went, "Dad, there you go. I'm just telling you, this is the way it's like."
And you think it's just different here in Canada or North America? Do you think in Philadelphia they're pretty fervent fans there? Do you think a Phillies player who's having a tough time and a tough season can do
Maybe
this?
there's certainly an edge to Philadelphia. Yeah.
New York to a certain point as well, maybe Boston.
Yeah.
But it seems every club in England, every city has
Yeah.
that element.
Well, I think the demographics too, or not even the demographics, but the wealth demographics of professional sports in North America, you're getting a pretty wealthy
True.
fan base.
It's less blue collar, isn't it?
Blue collar. They're not. Are they? They're going for the event. They're going because of business. They're going. I mean, Toronto Maple Leaf games are brutal for So, those guys aren't going to have a go at you. They just want to have a picture with you.
Also, while it was also difficult at times for the player, it was difficult for my children as well at school. So you speak about the older fans that have the
influence on their
braveness
kids
to come up to you in a restaurant. Now you're talking about their siblings or their children that they're influencing at home or within the stadium, and they go to school with my children at the same school or they're kicking around at the same park, and it kind of trickles down to my children now experiencing the same situation as what I did in a restaurant, but they don't know how to handle it. They're just young children. They're calling their dad, he's a load of shit, your dad, he's a wanker, tell him all
That's
this.
horrendous, isn't
So
it? Knowing
that-
that your
my
kids
dad-
go to school
my
with
dad
his
says-
kids.
That was a difficult time for my children in some schools, and I have to give them a lot of credit for dealing with that. And maybe I didn't support them enough at the time because I was kind of oblivious to it, but that was difficult. So they've actually grown stronger because of it as well, and I think we have as a family, and you do. But what I would say, I would never ever take away that experience of playing for Sunderland Football Club, the passion that club, that their fans showed week in, week out. I would play for nothing for that club. I really would, because it meant everything to them. And I could understand their frustration at times, but there's a time and place to deal with that certain stuff.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, you both single out essentially regional clubs, right? You both also played in London, where there's a lot of clubs. It's a huge city, you can hide, I imagine, a lot easier. Was that easier to be a Premier League player or a big name footballer in London?
Yes. Yeah. A lot easier. That's why I always thought, why did I live in Ipswich, like the actual town? Live outside, and when I actually continued to live in Ipswich even when I was at West Ham, so drove down. It was just a different experience. Now you're former Ipswich. You did fairly well there. You're there for 13 years, and now all of a sudden, now
Are you
they're
still
out
recognised in
there.
Ipswich?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Like, and when you went to West Ham, did anyone give you crap saying, why would he leave us? Even though,
No,
no?
not at that particular time.
Did you find as the years went on, they remembered you fondly?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was fond memories for the most part anyway, right? Because we got back.
No, you're a good team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were a good team, promoted to the inaugural year of the Premier League in '92. So,
And absence does make the heart grow fonder, I guess, in football, right?
Yeah.
People forget those short struggles. They remember the big picture, right?
yeah,
I imagine.
a lot of changes there at Ipswich over the years, man.
I think with London as well, you got to remember at the moment, London, we have 18 million people living in the GLA, which is the Greater London area, and obviously the city. So you could come across certain people and you never ever see them again. Whether you're in a small town like Preston, Sunderland, Ipswich, wherever it is, Norwich, you're basically either going out socially with your family or with your friends, and you're seeing the same clientele, same fans, week in, week out. Where in London, you could go to certain spots where you wouldn't even see a football fan.
But that must change your entire outlook as a footballer as well. When you're playing at Sunderland or Ipswich and you know that, no matter what happens, I'm going to be carrying this on my back all week long because I'm going to be amongst this hardcore, fervent fan base, as opposed to a London-based footballer where no matter what happens today, they're crazy at the ground, but I can escape
Well,
this.
that's one of the biggest problems that the northern clubs or the clubs that have such a strong fan base from working class backgrounds, they find it hard to attract that necessary player to maybe kick them on for a championship.
So they do avoid it.
So they do avoid it, yeah. I mean, back in the day with Keegan, when Newcastle, they started to bring a lot of the London boys up, and they had a fantastic team. Les Ferdinand went up there for a time. David Ginola went up there for a time, and they were really, really bubbling. But none of the players could settle up there. Even Tino Asprilla, I mean, he was living in a hotel for the full 3 years that he was at Newcastle. He had the top floor of a hotel.
Really?
And it was like a party room for the
I
time.
can imagine.
And it's a shame because it is such an ingrained football culture within those cities. But the media, the fans, the pressure to perform week in, week out, because as we all know, when things are going really well, it's amazing to be around. But when things are going really bad, like at Sunderland at the moment, they're having a little bit of a peak. It's a poor environment to wake up to every day, because you just feel drained. You feel drained even before you go to the training ground, and it's the head coach's job or the players, if you've got a good team spirit, to lift each other up, because it really drains in your shums.
And I'll imagine now with social media, right? You can't escape it. We
It's even
can
worse
just
now.
don't be on social media, right? But at least in your days, I know Deech, you probably got into it towards the end of your career a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
But in your days, you could shut your door and close that door and bury your head and escape it. Imagine now even harder to do that. But again, it's your choice, I guess, to go onto Twitter or Facebook
that
or
goes,
Instagram,
that goes
whatever.
right through society as far as, kids and bullying at home, that continues not just at the
it's true.
schoolyard, it continues at home in the bedroom, where they used to be able to come home and have their place.
Broadcasters.
Yeah. So, yeah, it is interesting depending on where you're playing. Like the big city of London is definitely different.
Who were the harshest fans you played for, Craig? Because you played for West Ham, Chelsea,
Yeah.
which are very,
I would
very.
say, the 5 years of West Ham, it was a pretty good stretch because it was in the top 10 every year, so it wasn't
Imagine
so bad.
that, West Ham fans. Do you hear that, West Ham fans? Top 10 every year.
Yeah.
What they're going through right now. Sorry to interrupt there.
What they're going through right now, yeah. And my motivation was the Bull and Pub on the corner of Green Street.
I've been there, yeah. It's something, isn't it?
It's something. You can't avoid going past it. And the fans would be there by their thousands. And if you lost, I mean, the amount of cars that they've damaged, the player. This is your own players.
So you're driving past in your car.
Yeah, you're driving past, and they're waiting for all the players.
Yeah.
So
bet they are.
if it goes
Yeah.
badly, your car might get damaged.
Well, I mean, and then you drive a pink Bentley as well, so it kind of
yeah, that's right.
With pink alloys.
Yeah, my beige 1.1 liter.
Ford Fiesta.
Ford Fiesta.
Was it a Fiesta?
No, my first car was a Ford Cortina.
Oh, Cortina, really?
Remember that?
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Granada was the bigger one, and the Cortina was the smaller one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a good deal. It was a couple $100, piece of crap. And eventually, I pulled up to the end of the road. It was a T-junction, and my freaking right wheel, it fell off. And it just bounced into somebody's yard.
Just fell off.
Yeah, I was
So
like,
it wasn't
I
getting
thought
serviced.
yeah,
Your
so-
MOT wasn't the big thing for you, was it, at that point?
No. The MOT, that's right. Yeah.
But that's tough, though. You're driving past on the way to game to, which, you pass your employers, because they're paying you.
I broke down, actually, when I was on loan as a kid to Colchester United. Big hill going up into Colchester. I was late for the game. Well, not late for the game, but later than I should have been because I broke down on the hill.
Really?
Yeah, just left my Cortina on the side of the road.
There were no club cars in those days?
Cool.
Club carts.
Well, there was actually a few of the Ipswich starters had club cars, and that was
You were a
that was a
starter?
big deal for not then. I was
Oh, okay,
I
when
was
you were a
young.
kid.
I was at Colchester United.
Oh, Colchester, sorry, you're
Yeah,
right.
I was
Loaned
on
out.
loan.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting to note now as well that most clubs have a private car park now, or they have stewards that escort the players to the stadium, or they're now trying to design these new stadiums, car parks under the actual stadiums or the arenas, similar to what we have here in North America. So the players are not having that, or having to deal with those interactions with
Right.
the fans. I mean, we even saw in Real Madrid, Gareth Bale trying to come out the stadium with the Real Madrid fans
Right.
waiting for him outside, and they're all kicking his Bentley. So I think that's a big part of you dealing with the stress and dealing with, similar to my episode in the restaurant, but I think it's something that grounds you a little bit as well to tell you how much it means to these fans. And
Yeah, but a lot of people couldn't handle it. And I'm
they
sure a
can't.
lot of
And the
footballers...
present day guys, I don't think could handle it as much as what we had to
right.
deal with.
Yeah.
You know,
I
they're
mean,
protected a lot more.
Do you think, I mean, how many, obviously not give me a number, but I mean, it must happen frequently back in those days, good quality, talented footballers never having the hunger because they didn't want to deal with that crap. They couldn't deal with it. They break,
And you never
they
know
break.
if you can deal with it until
it happens, right?
until it happens. Yeah.
You often see these great young players coming through, oh, this is the next big thing. Never happens for him.
Yeah.
And there's way more to it than just talent, I think, in some cases.
100%. Character is probably the most important ingredient you need to be a player at a high level now. To deal with all the adversity, having that
media.
little social media, having that little bit of resilience, because as we spoke about, like when things are going really well, that's not when I really look at players. Even working with younger players, everyone wants to get on the ball, everyone's ready for interviews, everyone's first on the training field. But when things are going bad, or even in a game when we're coming under the cosh a little bit, that's when your true characters come out. And it's the old saying of rolling your sleeves up, wherever it is. It's guys being brave to get on the ball, guys holding people accountable, guys encouraging to push on, captains taking the lead, which is the real lead of being a captain, a real leader in pulling people together. So
you see a lot of that raw stuff in North America too,
Yeah.
you know, with the NFL, but come on. But at the end of the day, it might not be the guy that's all raw. That's the one that actually rolls up his sleeves and actually shows that. And it does rear its head for sure about character and where these different individuals are coming from.
I wonder that, you talk about how a player through his performance will motivate and encourage his teammates, right? So is it a two-footed challenge? Is it a lung-busting run? What would fire you up as a footballer when you saw a teammate do something on the field rather than rah-rah, but there's something
Well,
as an
I mean,
example?
you got the physical side of things, but you also got just the point, are they showing for the ball? I mean, we had Paolo Di Canio, an absolutely fantastic player. But there was times away from home he'd go missing, and we would confront him. The players would confront him,
And he'd react.
you want to fucking do this at home and be the star and, jinking and jiving and, taking your shirt off for the fans at home. Well, what about away?
How would he react to that when he was confronted?
Not well.
Really? He'd go get angry?
Oh,
or
yeah,
just,
yeah.
just-
Well, Paolo was a little different, right? So he would...
That's a way to describe him.
a little different. So he would start throwing tea around and stuff like that.
it could be anything, though, Shams.
Could be
It could be a goalkeeper making a great save, a 1v1 save. It could be your striker, like really pressing from the front, like showing the energy that we want to defend with as a group. It could be that lunging tackle. It could be your captain arguing with a referee's decision to say, look, we're here to stand up today. We're not going to be pushed over easy. Anything could trigger that.
And it can be a switch.
It could be something from the fans, like a loud song. Like Sunderland, they used to be unbelievable at getting behind us.
And that just gets you fired up, right?
Yeah,
You
we used to
must
travel-
miss that, right?
We used to travel to away games with 4,000 to 7,000 fans, Shams, when we were in the Premier League.
everywhere. I mean, they come to
4,000 to
Ipswich. And Ipswich is
7,000.
not an easy place to get to for Sunderland. That's a good trip.
On a Tuesday night for
Yeah.
a 6 to 7 hour trip, guys that are working, as we said, blue collar guys, working class guys, travelling down to Suffolk on a Tuesday night to support their team, and that's the expectancy. So they're willing to put their money, their time, their effort in getting to the stadium. So all they ask from their players is that fight and their desire.
But you guys have good character, and it pains me to say that about you both, but you have good character. I can see you guys getting fired up by that kind of stuff.
recording this?
There must have been, but there must have been teammates you had who just, regardless, wouldn't give a shit. Oh yeah, so the 7,000 travelling fans, I'm gonna mail it in like a Di Canio, for example. It must drive you crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't happen often, to be honest with you. They get weaned out pretty quickly.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
And
players,
then what?
the team,
Weaned out from the club or ostracised
the
by
team,
the
the
teammates?
team wean them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not only the fans, but the team wean them out as well.
Yeah, you get found out really quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you're like a genius like Di Canio who, could take an away game off or
Yeah, you'd accept it because you knew he could
book a
turn the brilliance
hamstring in
on.
for Manchester United away or something.
Right.
Although he did do very well. I remember the FA Cup he scored against Barthez when he won 1-0 up at Old Trafford. He was brilliant on that day.
You mentioned the good times, and obviously with fame, when you're well known, you can be hammered when things are bad, but when things go well, it's great. But overall, as a professional footballer, you have this image, us that have never played professionally, of what a life, You get all this free stuff. You make lots of money. Did you ever take it for granted, or was it just, were you always like, wow, I'm getting a free meal here, I'm getting a free tracksuit or something? It must have been pretty cool.
It was cool, but I mean, it was what I knew as well, and all I knew really. Showed up at 16 in England, so by the time I was playing in the first team, and
You held up when you first
But
broke
it was-
through to the first team.
when did I break
18?
through? 19 for
19?
Ipswich, 18 when I went on loan to Colchester. That went well, so then the next summer they sold the goalkeeper, and I was thrown in.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, crap myself.
You crap yourself?
Oh, frickin' hell, did I ever?
Which game was that?
Stoke City away was the first game. Yeah.
Not easy.
No.
Not easy. And it wasn't the Britannia back then, right?
No.
Oh, I remember that stadium.
Well, not good.
Oh, what was it called? Stoke City's old stadium.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It was windy as. Oh,
Yeah. So you were
come to
crapping
me.
yourself. When you got the call, you found out when you were going to be
I was in
starting.
Vancouver, actually, just in the off-season.
Oh,
Got the
really?
call, yeah. So from then right up to... I was pretty much... you're just nervous. You're just... It's anticipation.
Would you
right?
rather start your first game on the road or at home?
Oh, I didn't care.
Didn't care?
No, didn't care. It'd be just as much pressure away from home as
Did
at
you play
home.
well?
Did okay. We drew 2-2 or something like that.
Do you remember the first goal you conceded? Because Deitch definitely remembers the first goal he scored. I'm sure.
I remember the first goal I conceded when I started playing. Like, I was late.
Like,
so I was 12.
Coming from lacrosse.
Coming from lacrosse, yeah. I had an opportunity to play in a youth tournament and Labor Day tournament. We had a very good side from Coquitlam and, one of the best in Canada. Actually, they won the Canadian Championship that year. I didn't start then, but I started in this tournament. So we're playing against this team from Seattle. The guy was cleaning on goal, and first game I ever played. And I ran out to the top of the box to challenge this guy, and he just chipped it over me.
Oh, really?
And it bounced a couple times in the net. I was
it's
like,
funny that I still remember goals I scored as a kid as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain
I
favourite
think we all
goals.
do to a
But
certain point. I mean, I
there's
scored
certain
so few
goals
of
as a
them.
professional that I look at on TV or on Twitter. I have no fucking remember.
Were you a
memory
broken concussed,
of
Deitch?
that goal.
You were
Yeah.
concussed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some
maybe that's it.
majority of the time I was concussed, but it's funny that, like you say that, because I remember goals from when I was like 11, 12, 13.
There was actually I had this light sweater that I wore for that game, Parkland School in Coquitlam, and I wore that same jersey, that same sweater under my jersey until I was in my 30s.
Really?
Every game.
Like even in England, you took
Oh,
it
yeah, I
over
did,
there,
yeah.
Was
Until
it a
it-
lucky jersey?
Yeah, this is what I always wore. So even when it was hot, I'd be in Jamaica playing and I had to have it on.
That's funny. I had a lucky pair of socks as well.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Can only
Yeah,
imagine.
it's crazy.
Do
I
you
wouldn't
have them
wash
still?
it. If I scored, I wouldn't wash them.
Now,
Then
so what made you stop wearing them?
I didn't score.
That was it?
Yeah,
So
or
no,
I didn't
they
play
were no
well.
longer lucky.
Then I'd try and find another new pair.
When did you stop wearing your gross, disgusting shirt?
When it fell apart.
Nothing left. It was like
just the collar. It was kind of just the collar.
Frayed.
fluttering away.
Yeah.
Do you still have these things? Could be worth millions in a museum somewhere.
Millions, Jesus. Nobody wants that. Hundreds of games later, my jeez.
Do you remember when you first got recognised for being a broadcaster as opposed to a footballer?
Don't remember exactly because you're always sort of they relate you to playing.
They do still,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But there must be some young guys you meet now who know you as being Craig
Yeah.
Forrest of Sportsnet for so
Yeah,
many years,
sure.
not as Craig Forrest, Premier League footballer.
No, well,
Must be sobering.
yeah, exactly. When these kids are like 20 and never heard of you before,
Yeah.
it's like, wow.
Oh, you played?
Yeah,
I
time
won the Gold Cup.
I actually got stopped in IKEA yesterday, and the fella was like hovering around me, and I thought, oh my God, like, is this a creepy guy? Or and so he come up to me and he's looking me in the eyes. He's gone, "Are you Danny Dicchio?" I said, "Depends." He said, "Oh, I really miss you guys on TV, like doing the Premier League." I said, "Oh," so I had a conversation with him. Nice guy, really nice guy. But that reminds me of about 2 years ago, I met another kind of youngish guy. I think it was again in IKEA. And he started talking.
Spent a lot of time there. Are you there for lunch?
Jesus.
Yeah. Go there for
Meatballs.
lunch.
They good for
Good
food.
meatballs.
Good
That
meatballs.
little-
Swedish
yeah,
meatballs.
jam.
Cheap hot dogs too.
Yeah. No, I
Very
don't
cheap.
eat hot dogs.
Well,
So
they're a
anyway,
dollar
the
each.
fella's
They're a
gone-
dollar.
this kid's gone to me. He's like, "So yeah, I really enjoy like TV and stuff." He said, "How do you know so much about like the Premier League and football?" So my wife's there looking at me. She's going,
You got to tell him.
"Tell him then." So I've gone, "Well, no, I like watching a lot of the Premier League." He's like, "No, it's like you really know your stuff, like you and Craig and the guys. Like it's like as if you like really played the game."
Are you
So I
serious?
said, "Fuck, I'm going to stop him here." I said, "You do know I used to play football, do you?" He's like, "Really?" I said, "Yes,
He had
Yeah.
no idea.
I played for Toronto FC as well." He's like, "Oh, I really didn't know that."
So was he obviously a young guy?
He was
Yeah.
like about 18.
I've had that some guys who want to get into the business. Like, so did you go to school? Did you take broadcasting? Did you? How did you get into it? And it's like, well,
Well, it's funny because on the reverse,
20 years.
I've many times over the years got so, like, who do you play for? And I'm like, look at me. Clearly, I have never been a professional athlete. But thank you, I appreciate that. But like, or did you play at what kind of level? Oh yeah, Soccer City of Tobacco, 3rd Division, indoor soccer during the winter. Yep, that's my level.
Relegated.
Yeah, relegated. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like you can't really think that I actually played the bloody game. There's a reason I host. I'm not an analyst. But yeah, fame's a funny old thing, isn't it? When you came to Toronto, I mean, was it a culture shock from a fan standpoint? Because back in 2007, there's this furor. People loved TFC, despite the fact that the team was really bad. It was this brand new, exciting party. They didn't care, right?
They did not care.
How do you? Was it weird?
No, it was refreshing to me. It really was. And I think I can attest to the likes of Javinko playing here, Mike Bradley, Torsten Frings, Danny Kuvermans, guys that come over from Europe as well that have played in Europe. And they just love the city of Toronto because fans were very gracious and very respectful and positive. And they would say, hi, how you doing? And leave you alone. In that sense where they respected your time, whether you're with your family or you're out by yourself. And for me, that was refreshing rather than getting heckled in England or told you were this or told you were that or you played for another team, so they didn't like you in that sense. And there's a certain, I can't really put my finger on it, but there's a certain way people in England think about a footballer, the persona of a footballer.
Is it negative to start with?
It's a little bit negative, and I didn't really like that. And that's another reason why I wanted to move my family across here, just for a different life. But for me, it was very refreshing. And I know it was an exciting time in 2007, 2008, where we had a new franchise, football in this city.
Yeah, nobody knew exactly how it was going to go.
No.
It had been unsuccessful before. And
but you were on the committee, Craig, to bring TFC to Toronto,
I was on the advisory committee.
So you couldn't have been that surprised. You thought it would work.
Well, no, I wasn't. I thought it could work if it was done the right way. And just from history, when you look at the backgrounds of the different ethnic groups that have controlled football or the team, when you put an ethnic group, Toronto, Croatia,
you segregate essentially, don't you?
You do, yeah. And you had an owner from Italy, an owner from England, and those groups would support each other, but it was never all for one. Right, which is Toronto SC's logo, and then that was really what it had to be, and that was what we were pushing.
So All for One went beyond on the field. All for One, we're 11 brothers out there. All for One was a club, a community club.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's worked. It's been great. It's still there.
Right. And maybe because of MLSE and just being this, group that, brilliant sports people and business people, but there was no particular group. Didn't reflect any of that. So they really did a good job galvanizing the whole city and every ethnic group that this is all for one. We're all together, and they did an amazing job marketing it and took it to a different level. It's amazing because I know Bob Lenarduzzi out in Vancouver. He wasn't sure. He didn't think MLS in Canada was going to work.
Right.
And there was a few people like that, and I think it surprised a few. I think it surprised the league because it ended up being definitely the
blueprint for
the blueprint
what you do to succeed in MLS.
Yeah, interesting how MLS, they thought the base was going to be southern states. The Texas, the Hispanics, Los Angeles, Chivas, Miami, Tampa Bay, Mutiny. They all went. They all sort of just Miami went, Mutiny went. And then it started moving north, where Seattle and Portland, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, it started to be really successful, and with a different ethnic group really than they thought they were going to be supported by.
And now Miami trying again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it will probably be very successful, I'm sure.
Yeah, if it's done right. Mindset. Yeah, if it's done right, yeah, it will be.
But how crazy is it when you look back? You played a couple of years at TFC, right?
Yep.
2.5 years, was it?
Yeah.
About 2.5 years, right? And you're an icon for TFC because of, you had a good career there, but really because of the one goal, right? Which made the headlines around the world, right? TFC, this really bad team, hasn't scored. Was it 8 games?
No,
Five
You know,
games.
no, five games, right? And then you
Yeah.
score the goal, and of course the seat cushions come off. And without the seat cushions, it probably wouldn't have become what it was, right? Do you ever think I owe much of my career and my fame to seat cushions?
No, not at all.
What a moment, though.
I
It
know.
was an amazing moment.
You know, there's a big story behind this, and I won't go into too much detail. But
Yes, we want you to go into it. We're on a podcast.
But the seat cushions were not really approved by MLS, because when you're giving away certain stuff within the stadiums, it has to be approved by MLS. And I think that it was a last minute thing that MLS kind of said, okay, deal with it. We want to put the cushions to commemorate the opening day. Although we did play a game a week before against Kansas, which we lost. That was my first game. We lost 1-0. But this opening day, which was a beautiful sunny day in Toronto, was supposedly the first home game, which I still couldn't work out. But I was like, okay, this is another North American thing that I'm just going to go along with. But after the goal was scored, and obviously the relief shown not only by the players but by the fans, and the seat cushions just started thundering down from different parts of the stadium. There was like I think it was like a 5 to 7 minute period where they had to clear the field. They had to bring on games crew and as well as the officials. There was players throwing these seat cushions like frisbees off of the field. The club were actually really, really worried about getting fined. But after the exposure around the world, like you said, Shams, whether it was my bundled goal scoring, trying to get on my feet and putting it in the back of the net, but the exposure of the seat cushions raining down and the whole atmosphere, the league absolutely loved it.
Yeah. I
loved it.
I remember it broadcasting. So I was broadcasting with Nigel Reed that game, and I thought when the cushion started coming down, my first thought was, oh no. And then it was followed by, bring it on. Like, it just loaded up, right? Because it really was a special moment. Like, it was incredible. And just to see, how far the game had come and the opportunity and how badly this team has started off, hadn't scored a goal. I mean, you started on the road, right, for 4 or 5.
4 games on the road.
Yeah.
I wasn't involved with those games.
No goals, no points.
No points.
You were injured for those games.
No, I hadn't signed yet.
Oh, really? You signed?
Yeah, I was still at Preston.
Really?
Yeah, I hadn't done
Why does that-
pre-season. I hadn't even
My
met the
memory's
team
awful.
yet.
Okay. So you just arrived.
I arrived the week
The saviour,
before.
Danny Dichio.
No, it wasn't even saviour. It was just they were trying to bring some players in. They were moving parts around as Mo,
I remember
Mo
it was
did.
Paul Dickov was mentioned as a big rumour. Paul
He
Dickov's
came
coming.
a
And then
year
it's
later.
like, yeah. And it's, it's Danny Dichio. Like, oh, crap, really?
Really?
No, that's not true.
A big giraffe. But it's funny as well, after the game, talk about the league absolutely loving it and saying this is a great showcase for the league. This is what we want. This is part of the marketing strategy. But they also give the old slap on the wrist and said, never, ever again put fucking seat
that's right.
cushions
Yeah.
on the seats.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't ever do that again. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that brought you into the Toronto sporting conscience, right?
Yeah.
For sure it did.
It
Everyone
brought
knew
the
your name
club,
at
I
that
think,
point.
as well,
Yeah.
because we were still an expansion team. We were still trying to gather momentum and bits and pieces of media. Obviously, we were live at certain times, but we weren't getting the exposure on the main news channels or anything like that. And I think that was really the start for us.
Yeah.
Not because we'd won a game, not because I scored my first goal, but purely because of these seat cushions and the atmosphere. And suddenly we were the hot ticket.
Yeah,
Everyone
absolutely.
wanted to come to
Yeah.
the game, whether you were a football fan or not.
Yeah. I mean, TSN didn't send a camera for the first 5 years. They had nothing to do with it. They didn't have any games. It wasn't their property. They sent nobody until they actually got the property, and then they went heavy on it. But
Yeah.
they weren't supporting it at all. I was upset with that, just being another network. I just wanted the exposure for the game, and I was disappointed that it isn't always the case.
We've seen that in sports media for so many years, though, right? You don't have the property, we don't care about it, and it's a
Yeah.
real arrogance, if you ask me. I hate that.
Yeah.
It's still relevant, right? You
It's
should
funny
still be covering
because
it.
I was watching something on Sportsnet on Saturday afternoon, and there was a
Dog
couple
show?
of,
The dog
couple
show,
of
was it?
games cancelled. And I'm going,
Oh,
there's got to be a
did
game
you see that
here
dog
somewhere.
show? Outstanding,
And
sorry.
there's a fucking dog show on Saturday afternoon,
Saturday morning when we used to be on.
prime time.
Better numbers.
Yeah.
Come on. Like, we're holding the World Cup when? 2026?
Yeah.
We're trying to get to the World Cup in 2022. The girls have just qualified for the Olympics. We're trying to push this sport through, and we got dogs on a Saturday afternoon on the main sports channel.
But did you see some of those dogs? They're beautiful.
I love dogs. I really love dogs.
Just in show.
But I don't want to see them on a sports channel on a Saturday afternoon.
Best in show.
Best in show, yeah.
Come on.
It's not really. So are you saying it's?
I have to interrupt just because it was fully out of Snatched. When he was saying dogs. I fucking hate dogs.
Are you calling me a pikey?
Yeah, that's what I'm calling you.
But are you saying that a dog show isn't actually sport?
No.
Right. Just so we're getting your opinion clear here.
No.
No, you know,
It's
and
not,
I mean, what we're doing here too with our podcast. I mean, we're trying. You know, we want to. It'd be nice so we could prove that there's a market for that. You know, outside of the big networks, and try to promote the game and give some content to the sport in this country. But it is frickin' frightening and how frustrating it can be. Like Danny says, what the women have done. I mean, it was a shame because of the actually last qualifying game. I know that they had some issues technically. They couldn't get the game up.
I know. It's really frustrating.
That was frustrating. So, the whole business is changing. But for
That's
a
why
country
I
that
think
is going to be hosting in 2026, the exposure is not even close to...
I think we're in a lull right now, but we're about to explode. I really feel that just something's going to happen very soon, I think, from that standpoint. Did you see the Premier League were talking this week and admitted that there's going to be very soon a streaming service from the Premier League. Now, whether it's all the games or some of the games to start, but it's going to happen. The Netflix of the Premier League, specifically by them, which will...
They're talking about in-club as well, aren't they? Which
really
for
interesting.
me, that is really cool. Like, we've seen the Man City one on, I think it was on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
They go in depth in the locker rooms, in the training ground.
Who's doing it? Someone's doing it this year. Oh, who is? I think... Christ, is it...
The problem I have with that is that companies pay billions of dollars for rights and exposure and access, and then Amazon Prime come along and spend and give them another 10-20 million pounds to do this other show, and all the broadcasters are like, well, hold on a minute, we're paying billions of dollars for access to you, and you don't give it to us.
You don't give it to us, I know. And as we know that, having worked in the media, it's very hard to get good access from professional football teams. TFC is pretty good, but overseas.
You have to be in North America good at it. You have to give the media access. You have to give it has to be that way. You have to sell your product.
But if they go to this OTT model, which is going to happen, so they say eventually, then that will, the TSNs, the Sportsnets, the Sky Sports. Wow, now what? What are we going to do? You got to think ahead of the curve here. But the article I read was saying with the current numbers at play, if they went to an OTT service right now, they could make about £24 billion, as opposed to right now they're making what? 4 or 5. So it's going to happen, people.
Yeah.
Definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
You mentioned Canada quickly. Staying in the fame thing, when you won the Gold Cup, did that change anything for you in Canada? From that standpoint, being well known? I can't remember now. I mean, I covered it a lot at the time on the score. I forget how much, obviously, Sportsnet were covering the tournaments. Did it change?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. It gave us a little bit of exposure. I mean, it was something that we were hoping that would help kick it on as well, and just another big step in the development of the sport in the country, and I think it did that. It was sort of a shame, too, that the majority of the team playing in Europe, right after the tournament ended, straight back. I was playing the next Saturday.
Yeah, right.
Getting smashed by
Manchester United. You couldn't bask in the glory.
No. Humbling, very, very humbling.
Was it a good party, though, that night?
Oh, different class.
Different class.
No, just
different
amazing.
gravy.
Different, yeah.
We should do a separate podcast just on that night.
Well, just in the lead up to it. I mean, I remember every round we got through, surprisingly, Harry Redknapp, I mean, they were struggling because Shaka was struggling. He was injured at West Ham, and they had young Stephen Bywater, who was holding down the fort. And Harry's like, every time I'd phone him, it's like, we won again. He's like, what do you mean freaking won again? Fucking Canada, you don't win anything. And I need you back here.
We're a top 10 team.
Yeah, we're
meant to be home 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Craig, you go right ahead. You go off to the Gold Cup. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. All of a sudden, you wanted me back.
That's funny.
So yeah, it was good. It was good. And it helped a little bit, for sure. But we're a long way behind.
Yes. We mentioned the women's successes of late, and we should talk about that briefly here. We'll get some personalities on the podcast in the coming weeks, of course, but another great week for Canadian women's soccer, qualify for the Olympics. Plus, Christine Sinclair finally does it.
Yeah.
Breaks the record, which is quite incredible, actually. One of the most understated superstars in Canadian sports. Still not really given the respect nationally on a sporting scale that she should
or
get.
internationally,
Or
for that
international.
matter.
No, you're right.
She's never been up for Player of the Year.
We talk
never been
about
top three.
superstars, rock star footballers and athletes. She's the opposite of that. She's so understated, right? But 185, now 186 goals. Jesus.
Yeah.
It's something,
she's
isn't
played, nearly 300 games
it? I
now.
know, the Caps, yeah.
I mean, that's the women's game. I mean, you're basically playing international games. You're going to play way more international games than you're ever going to do club games.
Yeah.
So they're busy, but good for her. I mean, it's amazing. We covered them from the early 2000s, and her longevity and the respect as well that she gets from all the teammates. I mean, she didn't like doing interviews. She's very uncomfortable doing that. She's getting a little bit better.
When you get a
but
smile
it's
from
not her
Christine, it's like,
thing.
yes, success.
Yeah, it's not her thing. It's just she's just about playing the game and as well as trying to inspire young.
And she's done that, right? I mean, 2012 inspired a
she's great at
generation,
that.
I think.
She's great at that.
Yeah, all of them do a really good job of that. Like they sign. I remember in Vancouver qualifying for London. We covered that tournament, which Christine scored a beauty in the final there too. But they would spend an hour, 2 hours after the game. They would sign every autograph. If the kids were there, they wouldn't miss a kid. They would, So they knew that their role was more than just playing and trying to win games for Canada. It was to take the sport to another level in Canada and to inspire young girls to go out and play, or boys for that matter, right? And I think the American girl who she passed, Wambach.
Yeah,
she was
came out
she
with
was
a nice tweet
excellent
as well.
Yeah, really
very
nice.
classy.
Yeah, very classy. It was it was all about just again more exposure for them and the women's game, and way to go, Christine. So
And we're seeing some of those young girls that she inspired actually now scoring goals for the national team on the same team as Christine Sinclair, right? Some
Incredible.
young kids coming through. It's amazing.
Yeah. Were they even born when she started? Probably not.
Probably not.
Right.
No, like 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
Wow. And playing international football. It's incredible. Karina LeBlanc, one of our favorites,
Yep.
into the Hall of Fame
Good
as
for
well,
her.
along with Brittany Timko. And, Karina's...
I picked her and Timko as well.
Oh, I guess you'll be on the another committee, right?
Yeah, I don't know
How
how
many
many
committees
are
you
on
on?
it, but they always want me to vote. So,
But Karina's one that she's retired, had a great career, and now she's continuing that with the growth of women's soccer at CONCACAF. And we'll definitely get Karina on the podcast shortly because she's brilliant.
it'd be interesting to get her on because I've talked to her a little bit about it, but just her role at CONCACAF and her role is to develop the women's game throughout CONCACAF and the challenges that she has doing that. It's not easy. It's not just showing up in these small islands in the Caribbean and saying, let's try to inspire these kids and try to promote the game and get women playing it. They come across all sorts of varying things down there, like, we don't want our girls to turn into lesbians by playing football. Like, how do you frickin' deal with that? Like, how do you answer that?
That's cultural.
Right.
How do you answer that?
How do you answer that?
don't know.
You just want the girls to play.
Yeah.
And then you think that because you play, you might turn into a lesbian.
Yeah.
Like,
it was backwards thinking, obviously.
And it's still that way in a lot of places. So she's got her hands tied.
Yeah, but she's one that takes the challenge on, right?
Oh, she's brilliant.
And she
I
won't
think
leave
she's
until
perfect
she's
for the job. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Is TFC buzzing this week, Deech? Pablo Piatti signs the latest DP.
Well, they're in Los Angeles at the moment, pre-season. I think he's a welcome addition. A guy with huge experience, over 300 La Liga games. Played for the likes of Valencia.
Espanyol more recently, right?
Yeah. Still question marks about his injuries, but Alex McKechnie was in the training facility this week, just doing a once-over on him, just to see
Great, so we can expect load management. Great,
Load
thanks,
management.
Alex.
But he was in at the training ground for a couple of days this week. Seems very excited about being part of the group and pushing forwards. A lot of people still kind of questioning why he should be the new DP. But remember when TFC brought Victor Vasquez over, and a lot of people were questioning that move.
Yeah, good point.
And he was a fantastic addition for TFC during those couple of years they got to the final. So hopefully he can have the same input. Very intelligent player, a wide player, not exhilarating pace, but very quick thinking, good understanding of the game, which will help our younger players, but also help the team out.
Yeah, be interesting. I mean, obviously injuries are a concern this year with Bradley out for 3 or 4 months, and Josie's often going to miss a game. That's just where he's at with his career now. Now Piatti, so we'll see. Right in the thick of it, camp-wise at the moment, and season begins when? When's the first game? March the.
So they're in California for 3 weeks, and they stay there for the first game in San Jose,
right,
which is end of March.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's a long pre-season for these boys to be away, but the club do a good job. They take the families over there as well halfway through this 3-week period, so they get to see the families and children still before the first game of the season.
Wow.
One thing about MLSE, I tell you, they you speak to any athlete, and the reputation is pretty strong as far as the way they treat the players.
They look after
as
their
a club.
players.
Yeah.
Well, even I don't know if Alex, when we had McKechnie on from the Raptors a couple of months ago, I think he talked about that. Mm-hmm. You know,
Let's talk about at some point coming forward. We'll have an episode just on injuries in football, and we'll get Alex on. I think it'll be an interesting one. You know a lot about injuries, Deech. You've had most of them.
I've been pretty lucky with
Actually,
injuries.
back and head, right, isn't the main problems.
Early in my career, I had like a couple of back operations, but
But knees and ankles have been okay, right?
so far,
Craig, you've been pretty good too.
Yeah.
Haven't you? You're pretty.
My neck is killing
next
me.
miss. Yeah, next
Oh,
now,
my neck's
right?
a mess.
Yeah, but during your career though, you didn't miss too many.
concussions is the big thing.
Concussions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Doctors are worried about that for both of us.
yeah.
3 of us. I didn't even play for Christ's sakes. But in a few good
Took a
mosh
couple
pits
big ones.
Few good scrums.
here and there. All right, well, listen, we're out of time. Anything else you want to get to, fellas? You good?
There was
Just,
hold on. There was some fantastic own goals at the weekend. Did you see the PSG own goal?
No, I did not.
Oh,
I haven't
it's
caught up
a
on the weekend.
cracker. Mariappa scored a good one for Watford, actually.
Right.
But please, if anyone's got the time, look at the PSG. I think it was the second goal against Lyon. It's a double give and go with 2 separate defenders from Lyon, and the second defender smashes it in the net. It's a wonderful sight because I love seeing defenders
own
score own goals.
I'm sure Craig left them too, eh?
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. I've had a few beauties. Actually, guys smash them in. Yeah.
What were you saying there, Wonger?
Just CPL Tuesday announce Ottawa's new team and unveil all that. So that would be an interesting.
Huge day for the CPL, for Canadian football, I think, in general. And if you didn't listen to it, please check out last week's podcast. Craig wasn't there, so not a great reason to listen, but great insight into the CPL and Atletico Ottawa and how they came to be. So check that out. Socials, as always, make sure you please follow us on Twitter, Footy_Prime. On Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, it's Footy Prime, the podcast. Our thanks to Eggplant Picture and Sound for providing this wonderful studio, and our good friends at deanblundell.com. For Danny Dickio, Craig Forrest, Dan Wong, I'm James Sharman. Cheers for listening.